Welcome back. Time to react to week number 8 in the NFL. Weird week with no buys. Still don't know why the NFL does it that way, but no buys this week, so every team played. A lot of quarterback injuries. Unfortunately, Kirk Cousins, torn Achilles, done for the year. Kenny Pickett got banged up. Tyrod Taylor got banged up. A lot of guys. So a lot to talk about. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave in the comments your thoughts about week 8, what you saw, who the big winners and losers were, and let's get into it. Thursday night gave us the Buccaneers at the Bills. Buccaneers offense was struggling a lot going into this game. They had scored 6 points and 13 points their past 2 games. This time they scored 18, but their offense still didn't look that sharp. I mean, the Bills defense, despite how banged up they are, they're still doing a good enough job. Baker Mayfield had that pretty lucky touchdown at the end to Mike Evans. It hit off the defender's helmet and somehow fell right into the arms of Mike Evans, making it a closer game than it probably was. But for the most part, it was 24-10 Bills, and the Bills were moving the ball very well. But on probably 2 or 3 drives, the Bills stalled on like a 4th and 1, 4th and 2 near midfield, and they kept punting it, and the fans were not happy about it. I get where Sean McDermott's coming from because the Bucs offense was not showing to be any type of threat to that point, but still, I feel like fans on 4th and 1 near midfield, Josh Allen's your quarterback, you want to go for that every time. I get it, but they got the victory. That's all that matters. The Bills had not looked too sharp lately. They lost that game in London, barely beat the Giants by 5, and came down to the final play. Lost to the Patriots the week before that, so a nice bounce back for them. And as for the Buccaneers, who got off to a nice start, they are now they've lost 3 straight games, so now they are 3-4. So at one point they were in first place in the NFC South, looking like they were in a good position, but that team is just not that good, unfortunately. As much as I like Baker Mayfield, he's not the future there, but it is what it is. But at least Tampa battled; they stayed in it. And I think they covered the spread. Yes, they did. It was a 10-point spread when it closed. Wow. So Tampa covered, but the Bills get the win. They go to 5-3 on the year. The Texans were at the Carolina Panthers. I believe both these teams were coming off a bye. Am I right about that? The Texans were, and the Panthers were. Yes, both teams coming off a bye. The Panthers get their first win of the year. Bryce Young, first win of his career. Frank Reich, first coaching win as a Carolina Panther. Of course, he won with the Colts plenty of times, but Bryce Young looked okay in this game. He did get sacked 6 times, which that's not fun, but I feel like the Panthers' offensive line has not been that good this year, and Ike Ekwonu hasn't looked like the best pick, to be honest with you. So we'll see if he can get things going in the second half of the year. But Young overall put up 235 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown, no turnovers. I mean, that part's good. CJ Stroud on the other side didn't look that impressive. He only had 140 yards passing, no turnovers or anything, no touchdowns. Did have a rushing touchdown, like a quarterback sneak from the 1-yard line, but I wasn't that impressed with CJ Stroud in this game. But for Bryce Young, I mean, yeah, it's nice to get your first win. Of course, the Panthers don't own their first-round pick, so there's no incentive to lose. So it's nice for them. I don't know how many games they'll win the rest of the year. That team is obviously not that good. They have defensive injuries. But, to come out to bye and hold an offense like the Texans, the Texans' offense has had their moments. They're not that bad. So to hold them to 13 is pretty impressive. Obviously, the Texans' defense has been good this year. That continues here. Eddie Pinheiro with the game-winning field goal, which took about 4 tries because the Texans kept going off sides, but they finally got it done. So congrats to the Panthers on their first win of 2023. The Rams were at the Dallas Cowboys, a game that I thought would be much closer, but I was wrong. It closed at Dallas by 7, and the Cowboys won this game by 23. 43-20 final score. Not a good game here for the Rams. Make matters worse, Matthew Stafford left this game with a thumb injury on his throwing hand. It was one of those plays where went back to pass, and you can see on the slow motion replay, his thumb went right into the opponent's helmet. So that's probably very painful. He may be out for a bit. We'll see how long. I have not seen any type of update about that yet, but it might be a week or 2. Could be 3, could be 4 games. I mean, if it's that long, their season's probably over. The Rams are now 3-5. They have some, 2 good teams in their division with the Niners and the Seahawks. So not good news for them in terms of competing the rest of the year. The Dallas defense was awesome in this game. A pick six by DeRon Bland. Of course, some of that was against the backup quarterback, Brett Rippon, but Micah Parsons made an impact, of course. I believe he had a strip sack in this game. But yeah, Dallas's defense came out and played very well. There was a blocked punt that resulted in a safety. So, the Cowboys came out to bye, and they looked great, which is a credit to Mike McCarthy, a guy that I'm definitely not that high on, but got to give it credit where credit's due. And they came out very focused, and right out the gate, their offense was on fire. Dak Prescott looked pretty flawless in this game, honestly. He had a great touchdown throw to Jake Ferguson up the seam, had a great deep ball to Brandon Cooks for a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb had a field day in this game. What were his stats? Let's look real quick. Lamb had 14 targets, 12 catches, 158 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So if you had CeeDee Lamb in your fantasy league, probably won this week, so congrats. But he was great. Back-to-back down games for Cooper Kupp, which is kind of concerning. 10 targets, only 4 catches for 21 yards. So this Rams offense has not been moving lately, but with Matthew Stafford down now and Brett Rippon as the backup, things might get a bit uglier there. But for Dallas, they're now 5-2, trying to keep up with the Philadelphia Eagles. Unfortunately for them, the Eagles pull off a victory this week, so they're still a game back. But a nice win for the Cowboys coming out to bye. The Vikings were at the Green Bay Packers. A rough one here for the Vikings, who looked like they were gaining some momentum. They've won a few games in a row here. They've won 3 in a row. 4 of their past 5. One of those wins was against the Niners last Monday. That was a great win. The primetime Kirk Cousins jokes, they were put to rest. But unfortunately here, Kirk Cousins is ruled out for the year with an Achilles injury. You can tell in the slow motion replay, you can see that calf or whatever pop out, and it wasn't like the ugliest replay, but still you can tell that was probably going to be the outcome here. So just unfortunate. A guy who's now 35, 36. He'll be a free agent in the offseason. We'll see which team tries to sign him. And I feel like, if Kirk does do well in his rehab, he can probably be back for week 1 next year, but might be a bit of a long shot. We'll see. But, just sucks for them. They were definitely getting in their groove. They were in a playoff spot. I think they're in a playoff spot right now. So we'll see if their backup can win some games for them. I think he's a rookie, Jaron Hall. They have Nick Mullins, but I don't think he's allowed to come back until like week 10. I think he's on the IR or something like that. So Nick Mullins or Jaron Hall could be the solution there. Maybe they trade for somebody. Doesn't seem like the most likely outcome, but the trade deadline's tomorrow, so we'll see. But just a crappy injury there for Kirk Cousins. I feel bad. As for Green Bay, their offense looks terrible. Jordan Love completed 24 of 41 passes, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 4 times. And guys on the Packers offense, they were dropping passes. The guy named Wicks, I forget his first name, but Wicks dropped the ball. Aaron Jones dropped the ball. There were some ugly drops in this game by the Packers receivers. I mean, Jordan Love is definitely not blameless. He was not good, but still, the drops did not help either. The Packers had no run game. I think the Vikings' run D is surprisingly good this year. But yeah, no run game for the Packers in this one. Aaron Jones has been quiet this year for the most part, so hate to see that. But, the Vikings' offense looked pretty good when Kirk was in there. Not as much when he left, obviously, but Kirk had 274 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, no turnovers, so just a terrible time. I feel like Kirk was finally starting to get his respect, and it's just a very unfortunate end to his season. Good news is Rashawn Gary signed an extension with the Packers, so that's good. Get one of your young, really good pass rushers locked up there long term, so good for them. But just a crappy, it sucks because they won the game, but then you lost your starting quarterback, so just the bad vibes there for the Vikings, but we'll see if they can bounce back the rest of the year. The Saints were at the Colts. The Saints win this one 38-27. The Colts may lose a lot, but they play in some fun games, high-scoring games there. But the Colts were 2-point favorites. The Saints were 2-point favorites as this closed. Of course, they cover. So a 38-27 win. Derek Carr played well. I love to bash Derek Carr, but I can't. He was good in this game. He had 310 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no turnovers. Can't say the same for Gardner Minshew, who had 1 interception, which I believe led to Saints points. And I feel like, Gardner Minshew's been fine, but it seems like every time he turns the ball over, it's in a very costly situation. So as long as he gets that figured out, the Colts offense should be much better. The Colts offense ran the ball very efficiently. Zach Moss was 6 yards a carry. Jonathan Taylor was 7.9 per carry. So they probably should have stuck with the run more, but the game script is probably not good either, so can't fully blame them. 2 rushing touchdowns for Taysom Hill, which he's the most random player ever. Sometimes he's great and makes a big impact, and sometimes he does not make an impact. But this game was a big Taysom Hill impact. 7 yards a carry for Taysom Hill, 9 carries, 63 yards. Alvin Kamara had a rushing touchdown. He looks good, by the way. Kamara, the past couple years, kind of seemed like he was declining a bit, but Kamara seems like he's pretty much all the way back. Like, he's 27 or 28 now, so he's not going to be like the spry 23, 24-year-old he once was, but I would say, like, Kamara looks very good. I think I saw in the offseason that they did something to fix his balance. I think he had some type of thing where, like, maybe one of his legs was longer than the other leg or some shit. I don't know. But they figured something out with his orthotics, and it worked out perfectly, and Kamara's back. So shout out to the Saints for figuring that stuff out. But as I said, Derek Carr was good. Saints defense had some timely turnovers and stops, but as I said, the Colts playing some interesting games, so they are fun to watch. They're not the best team, but they are fun to watch, and we'll see if the Saints can build off of this. They get the Chicago Bears at home next week, and right now the Saints are 7.5-point favorites. The Colts go on the road to the Carolina Panthers, coming off their first win, and right now the Colts are 3-point favorites, so we'll see if they can get a much-needed win there. The Patriots were at the Miami Dolphins. I remember being so back and forth on this when it came to spread picks, and I think I picked the Patriots at first. Then I pivoted to the Dolphins, which thank God I did, because the Dolphins actually covered. So 31-17 final score. Dolphins win, of course. Pretty odd game. I would say Tua, he looked pretty good for the most part. Did have one interception, but Tua had a good completion percentage, 324 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Mac Jones looked better, but had the one costly interception to Jalen Ramsey in his first game back. So, Ramsey, if he cut back, probably could have had a pick 6, but he went out of bounds for whatever reason. But it was nice to see him back. The Patriots lose Kendrick Bourne for the season with a torn ACL, which you can't have because their receivers are not good. Even Devontae Parker left this game with an injury, which is no surprise, of course, but you're down to, like, Demario Douglas, who I like, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, if he's active next week. I mean, they have, like, no receivers right now, so Mac Jones, yes, he hasn't been good, but the receivers are also bad, so you can kind of make the excuse there. But Juju Smith-Schuster actually had a touchdown. He barely plays, but he scored a touchdown, so that was nice to see. Miami's running game has not been that effective in recent weeks, and I do feel like they're missing Devon Achane, but hopefully he's back in a couple more weeks here when he's off IR. He's supposed to be back when he's first eligible, so hopefully Achane, the exciting rookie, is back. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill had a great game in this one. Both had over 100 yards and a touchdown. Waddle had 12 targets. Tyreek had 13 targets. Waddle had 121 yards and a touchdown. And on that touchdown, he was left wide open. I feel like both defenders went to Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle was just open in the middle of the field. No one within like 30 yards of him. He kind of just jogged in there and did his little Waddle dance, and it was all good. But Tyreek still found a way to get behind the defense, which I don't know how you allow that at this point. I get he runs like a 4.25 probably, but it just makes no sense how like Tyreek does this every single week. He really is pushing to have a 2,000-yard season, and I do think he's on pace for it by a lot. So we'll see if he can close that out, and hopefully Tyreek can stay healthy. And a nice win here for the Dolphins, who improved to 6-2. The Patriots fall to 2-6. Next we have the Jets against the Giants, a game that if you missed it, it's probably a good thing because you really missed nothing here. An embarrassing loss by the Giants. They somehow almost won the game despite having negative passing yards, which, I mean, I think that's happened once before, but you don't see it too often, obviously. So the Giants had Tyrod Taylor get injured in the second quarter, I believe, or late first quarter. Tommy DeVito came in and completed 2 passes the rest of the game for -1 yards. Zach Wilson played like Zach Wilson, to put it nicely. He looked great in the final two drives, I'll put it that way. I mean, Zach Wilson got the ball back with let's see how much time was left actually so I get this accurate here. But basically, the Giants missed a field goal, 35-yard field goal to go up by 6. The Jets took over, and Zach Wilson had a big throw to Garrett Wilson for 29 yards, and another big throw to Alan Lazard for another 29 yards, which set up the Jets in field goal range. They just were able to spike the ball with 1 second to go, so the Giants were 1 second away from coming away with the victory. Of course, the game went to overtime at 10-10, and the Giants went 3 and out. Jets got the ball back. A pass interference led to another shot at a game-winning field goal, and the Jets won this one 13-10. So a very ugly game. It was bad weather. This game, I believe, had the most punts in a game since 2003. So just a lot. This game set a lot of bad records. Nothing good. A lot of bad records here. Tyrod Taylor's now week to week with a rib injury. Daniel Jones magically got cleared for contact this morning, so that's good. Hopefully he's back for the Raiders next week. The Giants did trade a Leonard Williams today to the Seattle Seahawks for a 2nd and a 5th round pick. So as a Giant fan, I love that trade. Awesome trade in my opinion. Leonard is a good player, but if you can get a 2 and a 5, I mean, you take that and run with it. So ugly game. The Giants fall to 2 and 6. The Jets stay alive. Their playoff hopes are alive at 4 and 3. You got Aaron Rodgers looking better week after week. I still doubt he comes back this year, but you never know. So we'll see what happens. But the Jets are now 4 and 3, and they keep their playoff hopes alive. Next, we have the Jaguars at the Steelers. Another game where it was cold, rainy, and dark, and not the best weather conditions out here. Not the best day for the Steelers offense either, which is pretty common to say these days, unfortunately. They looked better last week against the Rams when they had Deontay Johnson back for the first time this year. Well, he did play week 1, but first time back from the injury. This week, though, not the same, unfortunately, as Kenny Pickett was knocked out before halftime with a rib injury. He was supposed to come back, they said, then he never came back, so it was Mitch Trubisky in the second half, and he did Mitch Trubisky things, and the game ended on a Mitch Trubisky interception, no surprise, but the Jaguars' offense was even not that great. Trevor Lawrence had an awful end zone interception looking for Calvin Ridley. Definitely forced that one when he shouldn't have. But T-Law did have one big touchdown pass to the running back Travis Etienne. And a lot of times when a team will take a running back in the first round, they'll say like, oh, he's a weapon, he could be a wide receiver. Well, this was actually a wide receiver type of play. He was on the outside. For some reason, the cornerback, who was Joey Porter, the rookie, just wasn't paying attention or something. He just let him go, let Travis Etienne go, and Trevor Lawrence saw him open, and Etienne was wide open for like a 60-yard touchdown, which is pretty much the final nail in the coffin for this game. Brandon McManus was good kicking the ball in this game. I'm trying to find what he did. He was, where's McManus? Kicking 4 for 4 on field goals, a long of 51. As I said, the weather was not that great, so an impressive day for their kicker. And of course, they had the one touchdown. So a nice day for Jacksonville just to get the win, get to 6-2. The Steelers fall to 4-3, which is basically a 3-way tie for second place in the North. Right now, the Steelers hold the tiebreaker over the Browns and the Bengals. But the Steelers play on Thursday. It may not look good for Kenny Pickett. It may be a Mitch Trubisky game. Right now, the Steelers are 3-point favorites, so we'll see if it's Mitch or if it's Kenny playing in that game. But I feel like Kenny has not been that impressive anyway, so the drop-off's probably not that crazy from Kenny to Mitch, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Mitch had 2 interceptions, didn't look great, but hopefully the Steelers find a way to get this win on Thursday. And for the Jaguars, as I said, it wasn't pretty, but they got the win. They go to 6-2 and still lead the AFC South. The Falcons were at the Tennessee Titans. Arthur Smith making a return back to where he came from. He was with the Titans, of course, before taking the Falcons head coaching job. Interesting game here. I mean, the headliner was Will Levis, who was supposed to split reps with Malik Willis, but Malik Willis didn't really play much. He had, I think, maybe a couple rushing attempts, but yeah, 2 attempts for 4 yards, but no passing attempts for Malik Willis. Will Levis, though, threw the ball 29 times and had 4 passing touchdowns and no turnovers. Will Levis was incredible. Now, every pass that he made seemed to be like a 60-yard bomb to DeAndre Hopkins, and one time it was Nick Westbrook-Akina. But how sustainable is that? That we'll see, because I'm sure Will Levis will be starting next week, and I'm curious to see how he looks. Of course, there were, some concerns with him coming out of college of how consistent he can be, and can he be a good intermediate passer? We knew he had a great arm, so he showed that so far in this game. Now, the first Hopkins touchdown may have been pass interference on the offense. It was not called. Seemed like DeAndre Hopkins clearly threw A.J. Terrell to the ground, but no call. But exciting times for the Titans. I mean, they may have a quarterback here that's, definitely looks better than Tannehill. Tannehill has 2 passing touchdowns on the year, and he's played in every game, I believe, except for one. And Will Levis already has double that amount in one game. He has 4 touchdowns to Tannehill's 2. So the deep ball looked amazing. For the Falcons, they lost Desmond Ridder. He was tested for a concussion. He did clear, but he never came back. Ridder took 5 sacks in one half. He just did not look good once again. Like, you try to make any excuse you can for Ridder. He lost a fumble as well. I mean, he had a nice run at one point for like 25, 30 yards, but Ridder has not been good enough. Now, apparently he's still the starter, so we'll see what happens next week, but Taylor Heineke came in, and he wasn't tremendous, but he looked fine. The completion percentage was not great, but 175 yards, 1 touchdown, no turnovers. I mean, that's better than what Desmond Ridder was usually doing. Bijan Robinson finally had his first career rushing touchdown, so they didn't use him to perfection like we want him to, like we want Arthur Smith to, but he was fine. Jonnu Smith, for some reason, had a passing attempt to the third tight end, Mikael Pruitt, and for some reason Kyle Pitts was left blocking. I mean, it's just another example of how, Arthur Smith tries to outsmart himself every single week. Let's not use the generational tight end prospect and use Mikael Pruitt and freaking Jonnu Smith at quarterback. But Grady Jarrett tore his ACL, so that's not good for the Falcons. So I saw they traded for some, Eagles defensive lineman. They traded like a 7th-round pick for him, so trying to get some depth, but unfortunately a pretty big loss there for the Falcons, who are now 4-4. The Falcons do remain in first place via the tiebreaker. They did beat the Saints, so they hold the tiebreaker. As for the Titans, who get the win here, they are now in second place in the South, tied with the Texans. So we'll see if Will Levis can, keep this up the rest of the year and maybe somehow the Titans surprisingly make a playoff push here, but we'll see what happens. I'm definitely interested in Will Levis' second start, so we'll see what happens. The Eagles were at the Commanders, a game where Washington, honestly, they've played the Eagles' choice this year already, which was their final matchup, of course, and they could have won. Again, for some reason, Washington tends to play the Eagles very closely. Of course, the Commanders handed the Eagles their first loss last year after their long winning streak. And they had a 14-3 lead in this game. Then it was 17-10 at half after Joey Sly knocked down a 61-yard field goal after a false start. Didn't matter. They even had a 24-17 lead in the fourth quarter. And, unfortunately, after an interception by Sam Howell and a 4th down they didn't convert, unfortunately, the Eagles pulled away with a Jalen Hurts touchdown throw to Julio Jones after the interception by Howell. So, they came within 1 point of beating the Eagles their first matchup, and that was the game where Ron Rivera definitely should have went for 2. He didn't do it, and they lost in overtime on the Jake Elliott field goal. And that was the game where McLaurin, may have had his foot in. It was so close, but I think they called him out. But anyway, as I mentioned, Julio Jones scored his first Eagles touchdown. That's pretty cool to see. It's weird seeing him at number 80, but that's kind of what happens when you're in the league for a long time. And obviously number 11 belongs to A.J. Brown, who had hell of a game once again. He had over 125 yards for I don't know how many straight games that is, but a bunch of straight games. 8 catches, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those was a one-handed touchdown grab. So awesome stuff from him. 7 catches, 99 yards for Devontae Smith. He finally gets back on track here after a slow month here. Jalen Hurts had great numbers, 4 touchdown passes, did have the 1 turnover. It was a one of those, shove plays on the 1-yard line, on a bad time for a turnover, so a costly one there, but luckily didn't cost them the game, but at the time it seemed costly. So the Eagles go to 7-1, Commanders fall to 3-5, so a tough loss for the Commanders. We'll see if the Commanders do ship off Montez Sweat or Chase Young. I doubt Chase Young, but we'll see. Obviously, the Commanders declined his fifth-year options, so maybe they try and get something for him. And as for Montez Sweat, we'll see. Jahan Dotson finally came alive. He looked great in this game. Jahan Dotson, back-to-back, pretty good games for him. He had 8 catches, 108 yards, and a touchdown reception. Even Jamison Crowder, the former Giant, Jamison Crowder, 95 yards and a touchdown. I think it was a diving catch. Nice play by him. So, unfortunately, the Commanders' defense could not step up in the second half, but they got off to a good start. And as I mentioned, for some reason, they played this team well. And Sam Howell, who, takes more sacks than anybody, like literally anybody, only sacked one time by this Eagles defense, which is probably the most surprising thing here. So if Howell can get the ball out in time, like he's shown that he's pretty talented. Oops, I just dropped my iced tea. But he's shown he's pretty talented. So if Howell can like get the ball out in time and stop taking so many freaking sacks, maybe the Commanders have something here. So we'll see what happens the rest of the year. But as I said, the Commanders dropped to 3-5. The Browns were at the Seahawks. Disappointing one for the Browns. They definitely should have won this game. They had a 3-point lead and the ball with 2 minutes and 4 seconds to go. 3rd and 3 on their own 41. And PJ Walker threw an interception to Julian Love. And, of course, Seattle came down, and not only did they get the game-tying field goal, they got it all. They got a screen pass to JSN for a touchdown, so the rookie back-to-back weeks with a touchdown. They tried to come back down and score the Browns, but they got in the 4th and 19 after a Darrell Taylor sack, and, basically P.J. Walker threw the ball to the ground, and that was it. So just a rough loss there. Cleveland's defense did drop a pick six. There was a miscommunication between Geno Smith and JSN, and that easily could have been a pick six, but it was dropped, and that could have changed the entire game right there. But I give the Browns credit for coming back. I mean, the Seahawks got off to a 17-7 lead. A couple quick touchdowns for Tyler Lockett and Jacob Bobo once again, but it didn't start out right for the Browns. I believe P.J. Walker lost a fumble early. I'm trying to think what happened here. P.J. Walker sacked, fumble. So Jordan Brooks caused the fumble. And when you're down 17-7 in Seattle, tough to come back in the first place. So to have the lead late in the game and then blow it like that, definitely tough there if you're Cleveland. So can't afford to drop many more games. God knows when Deshaun Watson's coming back. So now the Browns are 4-3. Seattle's now 5-2, and Seattle's actually in first place in the NFC West based off tiebreakers. And the San Francisco 49ers losing 3 straight games. They got to get their what together. But for the Browns, it's a tough division. You definitely want that win. The Browns, luckily, will get the Cardinals next week. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be. It's not going to be Joshua Dobbs. It's either Kyler Murray or Clayton Tune. So hopefully a easier win. Obviously, if it's Clayton Tune, it seems like I would not want to face Kyler Murray. So, we'll see what happens there. But as for Seattle, I mean, they have a tough matchup next week at Baltimore. That should really show us who they are. But, so far a good start for the Seahawks. But to be leading in the West this far into the season, it says a lot about this Seahawks team. Yes, I know the 49ers have had injuries and Purdy hasn't played well, but still, it's a great spot to be in. In Seattle, if they just keep it up and play at this pace, they should definitely be a playoff team once again. The Baltimore Ravens were at the Arizona Cardinals, and this was a bad beat this game. I bet on the Ravens as what were they when I picked them? They were a Baltimore minus 9.5. So yeah, they should have won this one by half a point. Unfortunately, they could not recover an onside kick at the end, and the freaking Cardinals had a field goal to try and make it a one-possession game and get the onside kick back. But this was definitely a potential letdown spot for the Baltimore Ravens, but it never felt like they were in danger of losing this game. It was a close game for a while. It was 14-7, then it got to 24-15, 31-21, of course, but it never felt like the Ravens were in real danger here. It was just a matter of can they cover the spread, and as I said, they probably should have. The Cardinals put up 17 points in the fourth quarter. The main headliner for this game was freaking Gus Edwards. I mean, I got lucky because in my main fantasy league, I started Deonta Foreman last week. He had 30 points randomly and 3 touchdowns. Then I started Gus Edwards this week. He had 3 touchdowns as well. So just, that's what playing 0 running back is about in fantasy. Anyway, but yeah, Gus Edwards, 19 carries, 80 yards on the ground, 3 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, not the biggest day, 157 passing yards. He had the 1 passing touchdown to Mark Andrews. Joshua Dobbs has really fell back down to earth, as I mentioned before. He's not starting next week. It's going to be Clayton Tune or Kyler Murray playing in Cleveland next week, but 2 interceptions for Dobbs, took 2 sacks. Just can't have that stuff. Dobbs has been very turnover prone the past few starts, and it's unfortunate. He was a good story, but we'll see if he gets another shot in the future. I guess some good news for the Cardinals is that their second-year tight end, Trey McBride, was awesome. He had 14 targets, 10 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. His touchdown was awesome. I am still shocked that the refs didn't blow this play dead. It seemed like McBride was held up at like the 1 yard line. Not like one, probably like the 2 or 3 yard line, and he was getting moved backwards. And 9 times out of 10, the ref's going to blow the whistle and blow that play dead because the forward progress is not happening. But they kept it going, and some Cardinals offensive linemen came in and pushed him into the end zone. So it worked out perfectly. So if you started Trey McBride, then shout out to you. But another note from this game, Odell Beckham, no catches. He got hurt once again in this game, but he came back in. He was slamming his helmet on the ground. He's not, his tantrums are not as bad as the past. He's not out here kicking nets and screaming on the sideline, but did throw his helmet down. So I feel bad for Odell, but, the Ravens keep winning. They are 6-2. They're in first place in that division by 2 games now. As I mentioned last video when they beat the crap out of the Lions, this team's legit. They're not really weak at any particular position. You could say running back, but as I just said, Gus Edwards had a 3-touchdown game. They find a way to make it work. And as I said before, when you have Lamar Jackson, you don't need an elite running back. Would it be nice to have a Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry at the deadline? Of course, but it's probably not going to happen. The Chiefs were at the Broncos, a pretty weird game, very unexpected. The Chiefs closed at 7-point favorites. They lost this game 24-9. I mean, how many times do you see a Pat Mahomes-led team score 9 points? I think maybe in that Super Bowl against the Buccaneers they had 9 points, but aside from that, tough to think of a time when the Chiefs had that few points. They didn't even score a touchdown in this game, did they? I don't think they did. I think it was all field goals by Butker, unless there was a 2-point conversion I'm forgetting. Field goal. Yeah, no touchdowns and no points in the second half for the Chiefs offense. I mean, I'll give Mahomes a bit of a pass. I mean, Sky Moore dropped a pass. Rashee Rice dropped a pass that would have been like a big game. So it wasn't completely on Pat Mahomes. But we did get the notification that Mahomes had the flu coming into this game. And you can tell that he was just not himself, not to make excuses, but the weather wasn't great. And honestly, the Broncos defense, ever since that 70-point game they had when the Dolphins put up 70 on them, they've had a pretty solid defense. I mean, maybe I guess the past 2 or 3 games. Yeah, the past 3 games, they've been playing better defense. They held the Chiefs to 19 on that Thursday night game in Week 6. They held the Packers to 17 in Week 7 last week. Then this game, they hold the Chiefs to 9. So, I mean, not like the Packers' offense is good, but obviously to hold the Chiefs to 19 and then 9, it's very impressive. So I give the Broncos defense some credit to come back and play hard after getting embarrassed in Miami back in Week 3. And as for Russell Wilson, I mean, guys, low-key having a nice year. He did not pass many times. He was 12 for 19, but had 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. He did have 6 sacks taken, so that's the bad part. And if Pat Mahomes gets a pass rush in the playoffs, it obviously makes the Chiefs way more dangerous. I don't think the Chiefs are in danger of missing the playoffs. They should be fine. They won literally 6 games in a row coming into this one. The only other loss they had was the Week 1 to the Lions. But a good job by Denver to capitalize on some of the Chiefs' mistakes. There was the muff punt by McCole Hardman, who they just got from the Jets a couple weeks ago. Of course, he was once a Chief, went back there. He muffed the punt that led to the touchdown by Cortland Sutton, who guy scores every freaking week. He had a 6-yard catch, making it 21-9. That pretty much opened up the game to a 2-point lead, or 2-score lead is what I meant to say, not freaking 2 points. 2-score lead. So yeah, nice win for them. The Broncos improved to 3-5, so they're a weird team. Sometimes they look like an embarrassment. Sometimes they look pretty competent, and this was one of those games. And as for the Chiefs, it was just a weird spot. You just look past it. The Chiefs do have 2 very tough games coming up. They have that game at 9:30 a.m. against the Dolphins next week. Then they have a night game against the Eagles the week after. So after that, though, the schedule kind of lightens up, the Raiders and the Packers. But yeah, I mean, that should be fun to watch what happens with the Chiefs. The Chiefs haven't looked the same as they have in the past. They're not the same offense since Tyreek Hill left, of course, but I do want to see if these young receivers can step up consistently. Of course, Rashee Rice has shown flashes, Sky Moore has shown flashes, and MVS makes his big play here and there, but they have not been consistent. So we'll see if they can, still win against some good teams like Miami and Philly coming up. The Bengals were at the 49ers. A big game for the Bengals. I mean, they were coming out to bye. It's a big game for both teams, to be honest. The Niners were coming off 2 straight losses. They had that weird loss in Cleveland to PJ Walker. They had the loss against the Vikings on Monday night a couple weeks back, or last week, I should say, week 7. And they came into this one losing 2 straight. The Bengals were coming off a bye, having won 3 straight before that. And the big question was, well, how healthy does Joe Burrow look? And he came out the gates and he looked pretty freaking healthy. I mean, he made one of those plays once again where he moved around the pocket for like 10 seconds, bought time, threw a first down to T. Higgins. Burrow had a couple nice long runs as well. There was like a 3rd and 10. It was a QB draw, and Burrow picked up a first down. Like, you knew, like, right then and there, okay, he's feeling good. So he had 6 carries for 43 yards, Joe Burrow. Wow. So pretty impressive there, and that's not even including, did he take any knees? Let's see. Did he take knees? I don't think he did. No, but still. No, he did. Sorry. Rush up the middle for a 1-yard loss. So, yeah, he probably did take a knee. So that's even better. But anyway, Burrow was accurate. He was decisive. He looked great. I mean, the Niners defense didn't really look like they were up for that kind of task. The Bengals defense, they looked good. I mean, Brock Purdy, 2 interceptions. Purdy now has not been the same. He has 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles over 3 games now for Brock Purdy. Trent Williams was out once again, so not to make excuses, but he was out, and he's by far their best offensive lineman. But it felt like Cincinnati dominated the entire game, and that includes a lost fumble in the red zone by Irv Smith Jr., who, I mean, look, Irv Smith was fun for a bit with the Vikings. He had his moments, but I feel like the Bengals can really use a tight end upgrade, so I don't know who's out there, but I don't know how bad the Zach Ertz injury is and if Zach Ertz even has anything left, but I feel like what Irv Smith gives them is almost nothing. There was an awesome interception by Jermaine Pratt. He had like a one-handed interception. Purdy was rolling out to the right, and he just threw it, and I think Pratt just jumped in the air and just took it in with like one hand. It was a great interception. But yeah, defense was good. Burrow's pocket presence was awesome. Obviously, look, the Bengals don't have a perfect offensive line, but Burrow is he just knows where people are. He just knows where to bounce around. He can make throws. He hit Jamar Chase on like a fake bubble screen. Chase leaked to the end zone for an easy touchdown. So the Bengals just had it rolling. Even Joe Mixon ran the ball pretty well, which you don't see every week. So good to see there for Cincinnati, who have now won 4 straight games. The Niners, it ain't looking too good for the Niners, man. I don't know what's going on with them. Injuries, yes, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, guys are out for them. But to lose 3 straight games and 2 of those being to the Browns and Vikings, I mean, come on. They do have a bye week this week, so probably a perfect time for that. And they come out to bye playing the Jaguars in Jacksonville, so that should be fun. I'm not that concerned about the Niners. Maybe a little concerned about Brock Purdy. Of course, I'm not like the biggest Purdy guy, but we'll see if he bounces back after the bye. Final game here, Sunday nighter. The Bears were at the Chargers. Chargers were 9.5-point favorites when it closed, and they did cover. 30-13 final score. Tyson Bagent was the starter once again, and it didn't go too well. Tyson Bagent, a couple of second half turnovers, 2 interceptions in this game. Watching that man throw a deep ball is just disturbing. I mean, look, I can't talk. My arm sucks, but this guy's in the NFL, and he really can't throw over like 30 yards, so it's rough to watch. Justin Herbert started out this game on fire. He finished the day looking very good too, but I think he completed like his first 15 passes, Herbert. He finished 31 of 40, 298 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no turnovers, so he looked great. Joshua Palmer went down at one point. I thought he tore his ACL. It looked bad, but he came back in the game. So, I mean, the Chargers can't afford to lose another wide receiver after Mike Williams went down. Still no rushing attack for the Chargers. I mean, Austin Eckler, 15 carries for 29 yards, under 2 yards a carry, obviously terrible. But they came through in the air. Eckler had 94 receiving yards. Keenan Allen had 69. Donald Parham had a touchdown and 43 yards. Quentin Johnston had 50. I think that's a career high for the rookie. And only 24 for Joshua Palmer. As I mentioned, he was a bit hobbled, so, cut him some slack. But, yeah, not a fun game to watch. It got a little bit interesting at the end because I think the Bears came within striking distance of making it like a 2-possession game or something, but it's just not that fun. Like watching Tyson Bagent on national TV, it's not ideal. So I don't think Justin Fields is coming back yet. I do believe he's ruled out for next week, so it should be another Tyson Bagent week. The Bears fall to 2-6, but the Bears, based on having the Panthers pick and them being 2-6, they have the first overall pick right now and probably a very high pick of their own. So they're in a good spot for the future. Right now, the Bears are 7.5-point dogs at the Saints next week. I can see the Saints having a letdown, but still, it's Tyson Bagent. The Chargers are against the Jets next week at MetLife Stadium. That's a primetime game. When is that? The 6th. The 6th is, November 6th is a Monday. So Monday Night Football, the Jets play the Chargers. That's pretty cool. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, hopefully the Chargers find a way. The Chargers are now 3-4, but they are in second place in the AFC West, depending on what happens tonight with the Raiders and the Lions. So we'll see what happens there. That's going to do it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the week number 8 recap. We'll be back doing this next week. We'll see what happens with Monday Night Football. I actually haven't even checked the score yet. This is because the Nets were on. I was trying to watch them, but I didn't check this game at all. Monday Night Kick. It's 16-7 Lions. That makes sense. I figured the Lions would win by a lot. A few field goals by Riley Patterson. Josh Jacobs had a touchdown. And, of course, Sam Laporta had a touchdown before halftime. The rookie tight end's been unbelievable. So that game's at half now with 16-7 Lions up. So, anyway, that'll do it. I'll talk to you guys next time.